So who was the boss of the clinic?
Jean.
And she wouldn't allow you to preach, apparently.
No, she said, no, she's teaching. It's her clinic, she's teaching.
And who's the taller of you two?
I was hoping that you would mention about using honey as a medium of healing.
Yeah, there were lots of individual cases. I mean, that was John's leg, wasn't it?
Gangrenous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we put, no, we didn't use
Pawpaw.
honey, we used pawpaw.
Pawpaw?
Yeah.
Now, hang on a second. That's the first I heard, because I remember honey.
Yeah, but the pawpaw.
But honey was for those
Healing, but-
ulcers.
Yes, that's
that
right.
poured in there, and that healed that.
Okay,
But John had
Okay.
gangrenous leg.
okay.
He worked in a vegetable patch in Lanseria, and he had gumboots on,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't want to give in. He thought it was nothing, and eventually, with the heat and all, his leg became gangrenous. We didn't want to have his leg cut off,
Mm.
so another nursing friend of mine, June, had worked in Tanzania,
Mm.
and she learned there that pawpaw has incredible enzymes in it, skin and pips and flesh of the pawpaw.
Mm-hmm.
And so you squash it on the area and then put plastic wrap around it.
Oh,
And the pawpaw sucks out the gangrene. The pawpaw turns green, and then you change it. Every day we changed it.
wow.
And he went home with his leg healed.
Praise
without
God.
Antibiotics.
A gangrenous leg
A
healed.
gangrenous leg, yeah.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
God
we
at
prayed
work.
a lot, of course.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not just the pawpaw.
yeah. I would suggest it's only God. But that, yeah, it's just so many wonderful memories that both of you shared with me as well prior to, like, when I got there, and then even once I was there. It was just wonderful hearing those stories.
Yeah, we did have wonderful times.
The two of you in the Landy as well. They were like gung ho. I mean, it was the shanty towns basically, and those roads weren't roads really, were
Yeah.
they?
Well, we didn't even need roads really, because the landy just went wherever the houses were.
Yeah.
Across the
Jean,
field.
Jean had such rapport with the local farmers.
Yeah.
She was allowed on anybody's farm at any time.
Yeah, yeah. The charmer.
Well, it had Christian Clinic Green, it was a green landy. It was a 1978 long base
Yeah.
landy.
Yeah.
And with Christian Clinic written down the side. And we were allowed to cross any barrier, go into any farm, visit anybody,
Wonderful.
because we had a good relationship with the farmers, with the people of the area.
Yeah.
And we used the landy as an ambulance, picking up school kids to take them home. Somebody with AIDS who was lying on the side of the road had been kicked off a farm and had nowhere to go. We'd collect them, take them back to the little hospice that we started.
Mm.
And eventually, we needed that landy so badly.
Mm.
I must just tell you one thing that I think was very wonderful. We didn't have any medicines
Mm.
to run the clinic. We had a little hospice there for 7 beds. And to start off with, actually it's a long story. Am I allowed?
Actually, I've got time.
Eh?
Cool.
When we started the clinic, how can you start a clinic without medicines?
Mm.
And Yvonne's husband was a pastor, and he had met together with pastors from other churches as kind of a...
In the area.
Yeah.
A minister's fraternal.
That's
Okay.
right. And he mentioned at that particular minister's fraternal that there was this young lady, who wasn't a young lady at that time, but anyway,
She was.
a nursing sister who was wanting to start a clinic, and he
Outreach to the poor.
and he just wanted people to pray.
Mm.
And one of the dominees or the ministers of the Afrikaans church that was at the fraternal mentioned on that Sunday morning at his church that he'd been asked to pray for this clinic. And as the church was closing, a gentleman came up to him and said, I want to meet you and that pastor and that nurse in your office tomorrow morning.
Mm.
So I went with pastor to the church, to the church office, and we explained that. He said, tell me, how are you going to start this clinic? So I said, well, I've always dreamt as a little girl that I have my own hospital and I'd look after the poor people, and I'm going to do that. I found a place where I can start, and that's my dream. So he said, well, that's amazing, because my dream has been to provide medicines and means for this kind of outreach. He was also a Christian, and I said, well, that's great. So he said, well, write down all the medicines that you need, and I'll put it in a parcel on my veranda.
Every week.
Every week on a Wednesday, you can pick it up on your way out to the clinic.
Wow.
So that's how we started. And for
Free medicine.
all those years, we had medicines. And then
Praise
there
God.
came a time when he retired. And he said, we're moving away out of Johannesburg, and he was actually not a pharmacist, he was the CEO of a wholesale pharmaceutical company. And he said, we're going to hand over the business to somebody else. And he said, I don't know how you're going to cope, because this lady just stop it for a minute. Are we allowed to say what? Anyway, she wasn't a believer. She was a racist. She didn't like poor people. She despised them. And altogether, she was most unsuitable to take over the business. But she came out.
No, she didn't take over the business.
The business of his business.
He introduced Jeannie to the sister in charge of the medical part of another business, who used to donate spoiled goods. And so he thought that they could be those that would then step into what he had been doing.
Okay.
So Jean had to go and meet this woman.
Well, she came out to the clinic to
And
see
then
what
she
we
came
were
out
doing.
to the clinic, and Jean knew what she was up against.
Anyway, she saw what we were doing, and she said, we'll adopt you. We'll adopt you. And whatever was left, it's not that it's expired, but it's not for local, for sale.
Like if there's a big box of cosmetics and one bottle broke all over, we would get it. We just had to clean it up, and that's how we got it. Hey?
Yeah.
So like spoiled goods, really.
Yeah, it's spoiled goods.
Spoiled goods, that's right.
And so that was the one thing that was so wonderful to me, that we had medicines all those years, and more than we could cope with, actually.
Wow.
So,
The Lord's abundance.
absolutely.
Yeah, there was a guy, he used to fly medicines into various parts of Africa, and Jean would be able to give him a whole lot. And it was in the Mozambique floods.
Yeah, it was the Mozambique floods and things, and so he would come, and we sent so many medicines, and
Boxes and boxes and boxes of medicine.
the Lord said, don't give the medicines to other clinics, but only to those in need. So,
To Christian clinics,
to Christian clinics or
missionaries.
missionaries, people like that. So, and we had so much to give, and it was wonderful.
And also, can I say this?
Of course.
And also, anything sold in a pharmacy was under this umbrella also. Baby food, napkins, incontinence napkins, things like that.
Yeah.
And we had a small church, and we had a storeroom at the back. and also we had a stage in the hall. So between the storeroom and the rooms on the stage, that's where Jeannie had all her medicines and all the stuff that arrived. And by then we also had a small children's home. Um, so we had great needs for these children. We could never get them properly registered because the welfare department was so behind with their admin. We handed in the files of all the children, and they told me that if I kept on keeping these children without being registered, I would be put in jail.
Oh gosh.
So I said, well, there were children wandering around with nobody looking after them. Anyhow, I was never put in jail. But so with the clinic, it moved also to the needs of local children, and then a lot of those children weren't at school. So then we started an afternoon school for these children and for other children round about. So this Jean's longing to work with the poor sick developed into other things as well.
Yeah, this was also during the AIDS epidemic in that area. We taught about morality. We taught before the clinic started in the morning. We'd have a health talk and a Bible study every morning.
And by that time we had been given a whole park home set out into little cubicles. And so it became, and then we had a covering for it, and it had developed into a real little rural clinic by then.
Yeah, it was everything we needed. We didn't have good time even to think about what we needed. The Lord provided so fast, so well, so wonderfully that, wow, that's great, exactly what we need. There was, for instance, when we started the clinic, we had these little temporary buildings there, and somebody came by and said, you should really keep the goats away from the children and things. So I said, yeah, we should. He said, well, I do fencing. He said, I'll come tomorrow and put up a fence around here. So he did, and I never saw him again.
And Kathy's church gave us the benches, didn't it?
Yeah.
We used to get, what is it, 50 patients a day, something like
and
that.
they all had benches to lean on and sit on. Everything I wanted green curtains in the clinic.
They had to be green.
Prefab, it had to be green. And then a hotel at Midrand was changing their things. They heard about us. I don't know how they heard about us, but they did. They arrived with a truck with lined green curtains that fitted all my windows. I mean, it was really, we were really walking on miracle land.
Wonderful.
We were overwhelmed with the goodness of God. We were spoiled, rotten with the Lord. It was His clinic. He was doing it, and we could hardly keep up.
And then Jean had an opportunity to be trained as a TB,
We
ran
had
a TB clinic.
Our TB clinic became registered with the Randburg area, where I could get all my medicines. And we, as I said, we had a 7-bed hospice apart from the clinic every Wednesday.
By then we had a hospice built with a kitchen and ablutions and everything. 7-bed building was now a proper clinic.
And but at that time, many people were dying from TB, and there was no ARVs at that time. And all we could do was find these people, love them, care for them, make sure their hearts were saved and that they knew God. And the Lord showed me that little hospice, the Holy Spirit was like an eagle that sat on the hospice like it was a nest, and all these little souls would be hatched in that little ward, and they would come to Him on wobbly wings.
Wow.
Because they wouldn't leave. They would be born again in their beds and come to Him. and not one was not born again. There was one, except one exception. His name, well, he was he lived in underneath those
A water tank,
those blocks. I think it had a windmill above it,
probably, yeah.
and those big blocks that were damp all the time. He lived in there, and he had TB, and he had pneumonia, and he had AIDS. He was very, very ill, but he didn't want Jesus.
And at that time, there was a whole rejection of people who had AIDS. They were put off farms, they were put out of families.
The stigma was terrible at that time. People hadn't learned, and we were trying to teach people about habits of morality and things like that, and they just heard but didn't obey. Anyway, this man was very ill. He didn't want Jesus, and he died. Well, he stopped breathing, and we didn't feel a heartbeat, and he looked pretty dead. And we called all the teachers from the school, we called all the nurses, we called everybody who knew Jesus. We stood around and we prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. And after a while, he breathed.
Wow.
And I said, Johanna, I told him, pardon me, I'm not supposed to say his name. Sorry, cross that out.
Well, there's no surname.
Anyway, he took a breath, and I said to him, now you have to receive the Lord. So he did.
Wow.
And later on that night he did die, and we let him go. So we did have, people.
And that one that saw the man.
Oh yes, there was another little lady that had cancer, and hospice came out to us to visit us, and visited us. If we had a cancer case, and they were very poor. And I'd phone them, and they'd come and bring the medicines out that needed for her. And she was a dear little lady. I loved her very much. Before we brought her into the hospice, we visited her on the farm for a long time. And she was lying there in the bed one day, and she said, Sister Jean, just come here. Please tell that man in white, that man, he wore a white. He was so nice, and please tell him to come back. He was so sweet to me. I said, no, I'm so sorry. That isn't a man, that's Jesus. She says, oh, that was Jesus. So, when people had visions of Jesus, nobody died in that ward without him. His presence was there. We also had a man who was the son of a lady who was helping us with the cooking, and he went to KwaZulu-Natal to become a witch doctor. And he developed AIDS, and he was so weak, he wanted to come back to his mother, that they put him on a taxi in KZN, and when he came to the road outside our clinic, they had to fetch a wheelbarrow to bring him into the clinic. He couldn't walk from the taxi to the clinic. And when he got to the door, he put his hands and he said, no, I can't go in there. I can't go in there.
Bed locks.
So I said, no, we'll take him and wash him and undo all the things that he's got on him. Wash him clean. And he came in, and
he
couldn't stand the holiness.
The spirits in him
He
couldn't
was
stand.
terrified to come in.
And we washed him nicely. He received the Lord, and he went to the Lord from there. So the presence of the Lord was so present there. It was so wonderful to work in an environment like that. We also worked with nurses from all, I don't know how many denominations. Now I'm really talking.
That's okay, just hold it.
No.
Just so,
Okay, where
you
were
were
we?
speaking about the admin part now?
Yes.
Or before?
About the AIDS.
Yes. Oh yes, I must tell you about this. At the time, we had about 3 people dying in a week, or within days of each other, because it was really rampant in the area.
And we were called out at night. We always promised each other one wouldn't go, we'd go together.
Good.
And in those days it wasn't dangerous. So Jean would phone me, I'd pick her up, we'd go out in the pitch dark because we had to deal with it because the people were in such a state when someone died. It was a very big problem.
And we had somebody die, and we buried them.
They arranged the
We
burial.
paid for the funeral, we paid for the box and everything, and we had the service. Everyone's husband did the service at the clinic, and I went home that day, and I was in the shower, and I was really crying out to the Lord. I said, Lord, we can't. People are dying, and we can't afford to pay for coffins for everybody. What on earth are we going to do? You have to help us. You have to.
And many people, their families hadn't appeared because they had AIDS. you
So
see.
they chased them out of their families, they chased them off the farms. We picked up a man lying in the heat of the sun on the side of the road in our landy and took him to the hospice and loved him and washed him and cared for him till he died. But just to get back to this business of me talking to the Lord about how to deal with dead people. And the very next day, Martin's funerals were coming from Hardebeespoort Dam towards Randburg. And this
I
guy
saw our clinic sign.
on the side of the road, he just decided, I better check this out. So he came in, and I remember running to the truck, and I grabbed him like this, and I said, I've prayed for you. You're here now. You've got to come. You've just got to come. You've got to come. You're an answer to my prayer. And he came in, and I told him my story, and he walked around the ward, and he said, okay, we will adopt you as well. We will take all your patients. We didn't have, a lot of them didn't have papers. They didn't have funeral plans. They had nothing, and people didn't want them. And what were we to do? So he said, no, I'll just phone me. We'll, no matter day or night, whether I'm on holiday or not, I'll arrange for somebody to come and fetch them. We'll put them in the government morgue and try to seek their relatives. If we can't find them, we'll bury them in government graves, and we will attend to all that. You just have to call us. We will attend to everything. And we could pick up who we liked, when we liked, how we liked, and take care of them with no worries. And that was a huge thing that the Lord did for us.
Praise God.
It was unbelievable. We had the medicines, we had the immune tablets, we had the food, we had the transport, we had everything we needed.
And people,
And the coffins.
Jeannie kind of opened it up to whoever would like to come and help us. And we got nurses from quite a number of churches, and we got a doctor for a while.
And we had just people come to help. People gave clothes from, just brought old clothes to the clinic, and in one place we charged R5 to visit. And at the end of the day, people say, I haven't got money for rent, I need money to go to hospital, I need food. And then we'd share the money that we got from the clothes to all the people that needed it at the end of the day. So we'd start fresh the next day with no money and start again. And it was just wonderful how one thing helped another. We had no records, no books. We were so busy following
We had
Jesus.
records. We had a
Oh, yeah,
lady
we had
that
medical
worked in our office, and she made a card for every new person, and then that card went to the nurses, and whatever they
The
did,
medication was written
it was
down.
recorded there. And we kept those records for years, and I told you there were 10,000 patients, and my husband put them on his computer, and we had records for all those people for all that time.
Yeah, so that
But he helped us with that, really.
No, it was when I was trained that everyone, you can't give medicines without having it on record. So we had everything as best as we could as well. And
And
yeah,
Dean had a good relationship with the big clinic
in Witkoppen,
in Biscorpen.
they were also having problems with pre-terminal patients and no one to care for them.
It was a provincial clinic.
And they'd phone and say, can you have this patient? I said, "Well, whatever, we'll have, whatever." And then they would send the medication and the maintenance drip with them. And I became quite good at putting drips up. I don't know if I was allowed to, but there was nobody else to do it. And we put in the little butterfly needle, and they would literally be like watered flowers, you know. They'd suddenly sit up and be better, and we had a chance to speak to them about Jesus and help them and love them and keep them warm and cozy and fed. And there was a lady who, at Christmas time when it was very, very hot, insisted on having ice cream. So there were very few shops around at that time. So we looked around and we found some ice cream. I fed her the ice cream. She lay back in her bed and she died. And I thought, oh my goodness, that ice cream's gone.
What about the little girl?
Nana.
Nana.
Yeah, that she was 4 years old. She belonged to, what was her mum's name?
Gloria.
Gloria was her mom. She was 4 years old and she'd had TB quite a few times. And she was a very sick little girl. And she was the only child that we had in our ward. They managed to get the other children to hospitals and things, but this little one landed up with us. And we used to bring teddy bears and little things and put them all around her little bed. And I'd come and feel, she broke my heart actually. And she'd say, "Don't cry, Sister Jeannie," with her little finger. She'd follow the tear down my cheek and say, "It's okay, Sister Jeannie, it's okay." I believe she knew Jesus so well and she knew where she was going. And she didn't want me to be sad. But I was sad. Yeah, so we had, God was just so present. And the whole situation there has grown tremendously over the years, but that was the foundation that Yvonne and I were able to be a part of, that the foundation. Later on we were told that, you know, other people came, we had to retire. I was burnt out, Yvonne was very ill, husband was ill, and things were not the same anymore. And other people we had to move off that ground onto other property.
And we had to set up a board and have, you know, be legal. We kind of skidded along on the Lord's grace for a number of years because we were never trained in community work. And we just did the best we could with what we had.
We just caught the needs as they arrived, and if people had to go and fetch their pensions and things, we'd load them in a combi and take them to the place. How else could they get there? They were old, they couldn't even walk. How could they get there and identify themselves and get their money? And that's where everyone helped so much. But where were we? Oh yeah, so where was I? We were talking about
people that, like Nana, and people that...
oh yeah.
You went on to say then that it had grown so much and that the bureaucracy meant you couldn't continue
Yeah.
because so many
we
legalities
had to
came into
leave
play.
that place, and God gave us a much bigger place.
Yeah.
15 hectares with buildings on it, you know, the buildings, Claire, and people renovated the houses, and we built an administrative office, and nowadays it's run very beautifully. We've got staff in the office, we properly registered, tax matters are in hand, donors are informed about what we do with their money. It's very well run, very legal and very organized.
And growing
And growing.
tremendously. I've forgotten my thread of that one particular thing that I wanted to talk about. But anyway, it's not important right now.
But are you like strongly believing that the Lord is still there?
Oh yes, we were talking about the foundation.
Yes, exactly.
Well, somebody said, if you've got the foundation, whatever you build, somebody might build a rickety building on that foundation and it might collapse. Somebody might come and build another building on that foundation and it'll last, whatever. But the basis is that foundation, and that can never be changed. That's there for eternity. And we have had some wobbly buildings on that foundation since then, but we don't have to worry. The foundation is in heaven and eternal, and anybody who wants, I'm sure, invites Jesus in, he will be there. But people are people, and time moves on and people do things their way, and I'm sure it has prospered tremendously, and I'm sure it will in the future. But the foundation is laid, and it is a miracle. That whole project is still a miracle, and will just be a miracle in a different way in the future. But what a privilege we both had to be the founders of that particular ministry and that particular work at that particular time in people's lives when there was no help, where there was no one to care. And I can never thank God enough for that. I mean, to take two little peanuts and put us there and give us
a walnut.
and give us the privilege of starting that work and working with those people in the way that he allowed us to do so.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
Well, we thank God for your obedience in allowing that to take place as well. And thank you so much for sharing. That was just amazing.
Thank you.
And beautiful and inspiring and just wonderful from both of you. And like I say, thank you for being obedient to his word, because if you hadn't been, none of this, that foundation would not be there. So thank you.
I think out of our weakness, his strength was seen, because as I said, we weren't trained for community work. And I think we made some quite bad decisions. You were talking about it the other night, doing things for people that we thought we should do for them, and at times not equipping them to do it for themselves. But that developed, and it is developing now. There are things like that.
Because you were growing too in this process.
And
the Lord was refining you too in this
that's
process.
right.
So,
we were. It's really, they talk about blind faith. We went in blind.
Yeah.
I went in blind, running behind Jean.
And with that said, please check out more information below. God bless, guys.